Hello everyone, happy Monday. I hope everybody's doing okay on this fine Monday. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle Allard. I'm a faculty member in the School of Media and Design, and I'm so happy to be here today with all of you.
If I just lie here, Chase, would you lie with me and just forget the words? If I lie here, let's play. If I just lie here, Chase, would you lie with me and just forget the words? If I lie here, let's play. If I just lie here, Chase, would you lie with me and just forget the words? If I lie here, let's play. If I just lie here, Chase, would you?
I hope everybody's having a good day so far. I know I'm having a good day because it's nice to be able to see so many familiar faces or familiar names on Zoom. I'll be teaching a little bit after this today, so I know how important it is to also have all these wonderful people in your life. So I wrote this song about that. That last song was Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol, for those of you that were looking for throwback today. I hope it was able to give you the chance to take a little bit of a breath in the middle of your day. And this is a song called Island. I'm not just a girl and I will stay inside. All the things that I've seen will make me run and hide. But all I hear, oh, all I hear is I should live alone. I should live in fear. It's so hard to trust, so I shouldn't try. I need to build some walls if I don't want to cry. Don't rely on people in this town. Yeah, they'll break your heart. Yeah, they'll let you down. They say you should be an island, and I say, will that make me happy? They say you should be an island, and I say, then why do I feel empty? Oh, whoa, oh, 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 oh. We can all be love on the spinning sphere. If we all get hurt and run away, well, these holes in our hearts, they will not go away. We can all be love on the spinning sphere. If we all get hurt and run away, well, these holes in our hearts, they will not go away. They say you should be an island, and I say, will that make me happy? Whoa, whoa, oh, 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 oh. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sophia and the whole team for having me. I hope everybody has a beautiful day and a great rest of your week. And to any of my fellow faculty and employees in media and design, I miss you. Hello.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's almost 2 o'clock. We'll wait a couple seconds to make sure we have enough participants joining us, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're just after 1 o'clock. We have close to 300 participants, so we'll get the town hall started. First, I want to thank Danielle Allard for once again playing a wonderful set of music, beautiful music to start our town hall while people wait either as attendees or panelists for the town hall start. It's always a great way to begin our event. And that last song in particular really sticks with you in the end. It's wonderful. I needed a little pick me up today, so that's a perfect way to start our town hall. So we'll start with a familiar format that you are getting used to. We'll do some introduction of our panelists, and then we'll go through some housekeeping, and then we'll get started with the event proper. So first of all, hi everyone. I'm Claude Brûlé, your college president, and particularly thrilled to be your MC for today's town hall. So we'll go over to you, Mark, for introductions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mark Savenkoff, Vice President of Advancement.
All right, Chris.
And good afternoon, Chris Jansen, Senior Vice President, Academic.
Dwayne.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dwayne McNair, Vice President, Finance and Administration.
Diane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Diane McCutcheon, Vice President, Human Resources.
Laura.
Hello, Laura Stambra, Vice President, Student Services.
Tracy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Director of the President's Office in Communications.
Ron.
Segu Agwegu, Diganadasa Niangets. Good afternoon, everyone. My traditional name is Diganadasa. But my English name is Ron, and I'm the Vice President of Truth, Reconciliation, and Indigenization.
Maureen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maureen Costella, Manager of Total Compensation.
And Colin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Colin Beaumont, Director of Risk Management.
Okay, hopefully I have not missed any of our panelists. I think that's it. All right, so thank you, panelists. So if we can flash up the agenda very briefly here, we'll go through the agenda just to let you know what this afternoon's town hall will be all about. So I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items just for the smooth running of our town hall. Then I'll give you a summary of some welcoming remarks and a summary of our board meeting that took place recently. Then Colin will go over the Ontario Framework for Response to COVID-19. And then we'll go through question and answers of both pre-submitted questions as well as live questions. And then we'll do some closing remarks. All right, so some housekeeping items. First of all, if you have any technical issues or concerns, please reach out through the chat box and the event team will assist you. Of course, if you're having trouble with Zoom, perhaps the chat will not help you, but in that case, perhaps you can use your phone or other device to try to connect with our events team. If you will notice that we're using the webinar tool today instead of a regular Zoom meeting. So as a result, you will only see the faces of the presenters. However, webinars allow us to have access to a larger audience, and that's what's needed for today. So both Zoom and we're also on YouTube. Closed caption is available by clicking on the closed caption button on the main bar below. Today, there will be a mix of pre-submitted questions and live questions. I will read the pre-submitted questions and an ASAT member will answer. For the live questions, employees now have the opportunity to ask a question by voice. To do that, you please use the raised hand feature. That's a little blue hand that pops up beside your name, and I will call on you to speak. At this point, though, you will need to unmute yourself and then ask your question. Don't launch into your question before we unmute you because we won't be able to hear you. Please only raise your hand if you have a question. At the end of the live questions, if you have not had a chance to ask your question, please type it in the Q&A box. That's at the bottom. And we'll be able to record that and answer it afterward. And if you're watching this through the live stream via YouTube, please submit your questions in the chat on YouTube, and Sophia from our events team will get them and send them to me so that we can also speak about your question and have an answer for you. Okay, now I would like Ron to do a town hall opening.
Sure, Claude, that would be, excuse me, my pleasure to do that. In the community that I come from, one of the first ceremonies that we were given by Singwai Dizu, the creator, we call Tikunahila Dunksa. And what that means is the words that come before all else, or the Thanksgiving address. And so I'm gonna do that today in my language, and then just give some remarks in English. So again, it's called Tikunahila Dunksa. De yene tuoladu hungwe hugu yumtino ha hunja. Unquat tugu, oji dahasu, oelasu, asina tingandahnende, ahnyohende sewahit. Now I'm screwing it up because I said one in the wrong order. Ladisi galyendes, yunki sotawat neodaska nedalion singwat dizu. I think I actually missed a whole chunk of that. I have to be honest, my mind was in a couple different places before we started today, as a lot of ours are. At this time of year, we turn our attention to our families, and inside our families, everybody's dealing with a lot of things. And so we acknowledge the two-leggeds in our community and each other, and support each other during times when we need to be that way. But really quickly, what we do when we do this opening, the idea is that we take a moment to acknowledge all the different levels of creation. And I won't take the time to do that because I have a small window, but the idea is to weave a thread through all of our understanding, through all of creation: the fish, the rivers, the rocks, the minerals, the plants, the medicines, the trees, the birds, the wind, the moon, the sun, the stars, all the different things in creation. And we recognize all of the interdependency, all of the interconnectivity, and all of the interrelation between all of them. And we acknowledge and we say thank you to all of them. You know, the next time that we do this, in my history, we've always been in the T building in December, and it's snowing outside and we're getting ready to shut down for the holiday break. The next time we have a town hall this time of year. And so this one is about preparing before that big white blanket comes to cover up our mother. This one, we turn our attention to all the leaves that have come off the trees. The fall those trees have stopped their sacred dancing, and now we turn our attention to rest and to comfort and to sleep and rejuvenation. And so with that, we consider our meeting open. Yomongo, Danita.
Thank you, Ron. Again, a big warm Algonquin welcome to all of you in our audience in both Zoom and on YouTube. And again, it's my pleasure to be your MC for this town hall. We had a great break, midterm break week over a week ago, and this was really a time to recharge, both for our learners and for ourselves. And I have to say, we had two great events that week that really helped, certainly helped me recharge. I know it helped many of you recharge. First one was Convocation on the 28th of October. What a fantastic event that was. And I want to publicly recognize and thank all of those who were involved in front of the scene, behind the scene, side of the scene. It was fantastic, fantastic event, well put together because it was all done virtually. This was a first for the college, and it went off seamlessly. And what a great way to cap it off with post-convocation receptions. And I had the pleasure to attend several of them. It was great for the graduates as well as their families and friends who signed in from around the world to join in for those festivities. So well done to everyone. We also had the Kaleidoscope. And again, the two-day event really organized by our employees for employees. And this was, again, very special. Our theme this year, very apropos, wellness, technology, and fun. And we had a great keynote speaker by the name of Julie Richet, a very energetic person who really led a great activity and a keynote on how to activate well-being yourself. Something that I know all of our employees are showing a great deal of. And at the same time, we can all use some tips that, would help us even enhance our resiliency at this time. Last week, we saw an announcement from the Premier from the Ontario government introducing a new tiered reopening framework for regional implementation, something that Colin Benang will go into momentarily. We also saw several other measures that were either introduced, for example, our new app for self-screening that can be used in order to gain access to our campuses. Unless if you don't have an app or the phone, you can use a paper-based process, or measures that were extended, like the ones from the City of Ottawa and their mandatory mask bylaw. Again, everything that is being done in terms of protection of the population, protection of the public, and helping to plank the curve of the transmission of the virus. And again, our top two priorities continue and remain ensuring the health and wellness of our learners and our employees, and seeing to the continuity of the academic planning and delivery of our programs and courses. So again, those are all the measures that are being put in place to see to these priorities. I said that at the beginning that I would do a quick overview of the board meeting that took place on the 26th of October. This was the first public meeting of our board for the 2021 academic year. We welcomed 3 new board members to the board. Sheila Dunn, who's a Lieutenant Governor in Council appointee from our ministry. André Obanswin, whom you know, and is our administrative representative on the board, and Shivang Dewan, who's our student representative. Our third person is doing a second term, and that's Val Seya, who's our support staff representative, and she was already on the board, and she's pursuing a second term. So we were delighted to welcome all these new members to the board. We're also delighted to restart our Changemaker Award presentation, which is an opportunity to showcase our talented students and their faculty and the impact they have in our communities. And this time we celebrated and saluted the paramedic students who helped out with the COVID-19 drive-through testing at the Renfrew County and in Ottawa. And it was a great presentation. Again, very energetic young people, and well-deserving of that recognition of our Changemaker Award. We had an update presentation from Colin Benang and Grant Perry on the college's response to COVID-19 and our financial risk assessment. We had an update presentation from Ernest Mulvey and Charlene Miller on our public college private partnership initiative. And finally, we had a number of information items that were tabled, including a report from our board chair and my report. And that concludes the board summary. Now, at this point, I would like to turn the floor to Colin for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Claude. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be taking the next few minutes to provide an update regarding the COVID-19 response by the college and the current provincial reopening framework. Bonnie, could I have the next slide, please? So since we began monitoring the emergence of COVID-19 in January and subsequently the declaration of the pandemic, which happened in mid-March, the college has been on a journey to reopening. Although I know for many of us at times it may seem more like an expedition, it has been 241 days since the declaration of the pandemic. What we have collectively accomplished in terms of the planning and implementing those plans is absolutely staggering. If it weren't for physical distancing requirements, perhaps we could all be giving each other a pat on the back at this point in time. But we've been through a fair bit over the last period of time. Although we still have a ways to go, it's important to reflect, I think, on the accomplishments from time to time. We've overcome significant challenges to this point, and the experience we've gained will help us prepare for challenges that inevitably will lie ahead. The third stage of the provincial reopening plan marked the point where the college was first able to begin offering on-campus in-person instruction for our students. From July through to the fall term and beyond that, A focus was placed on pilot programs and recovery efforts for students who had been stranded during the winter and spring terms and who required hands-on instruction to complete their programs. Learning as we went through this, however, continuing to incrementally increase our operations and pivoting to be able to deliver instruction and services remotely has led us to being able to offer on-campus hands-on instruction as part of the programs for 7,200 of our students. Again, if we reflect on just the work and the sustained effort that has been necessary for a successful fall term, it's astonishing. While our community has gone through periods of reductions and increases in infection rates, during this same period of time, recently, in response to high rates of transmission associated with the advent of the second wave, Ottawa and other areas of the province were identified as enhanced measures zones. We entered a 4-week period of increased control measures or modified stage 2 on October 10th. Last week, as Claude mentioned at the beginning, the provincial government introduced a new framework for reopening the province in order to move forward while different regions are experiencing widely different transmission rates. Within this new framework, Ottawa was placed in the orange or restrict category, effective on November 7th, just this past weekend. Next slide, please, Bonnie. The new provincial reopening framework includes 6 priorities. First, putting measures in place that work to limit transmission and sickness, and obviously prevent deaths. Second, enabling businesses to sustain operations while reducing the risk of transmission. Third, enabling schools across the province to sustain a safe environment for classroom learning. Ensuring the healthcare and public health systems are meeting the needs of their communities. Putting measures in place to protect those most vulnerable to COVID-19. Developing equitable responses, including financial tools for groups and sectors disproportionately affected by the pandemic. The provincial government has established targets for moving forward that include ensuring the capacity to process over 50,000 tests a day and building on that capacity to get to 100,000 tests a day by the end of December 2020. 60% of the tests being turned around within 1 day and 80% within 2 days is another benchmark that they've established. Also maintaining test positivity under 3%. So at a provincial level, these are the markers that are represented by this framework and those by which they'll make decisions in terms of adjustments to increase controls or reduce controls in various regions across the province. The focus of the framework is to categorize areas regionally and take different measures that can be scaled up or scaled down based on the transmission rates that are being experienced, along with other criteria. These include epidemiological factors and capacity measures for the healthcare system and for the regional public health systems. Ultimately, the goal of the framework is to move all regions to the green or prevent category. Within the new framework, each of the province's regional public health agencies have been placed in the color-coded categories ranging from green to yellow and orange. As of this morning, there were 20 regions in the green category, 10 in the yellow category, and 2 in the orange category. Those are Ottawa and York, and 1 in the red category, which is Peel. Perth and Pembroke campuses are included in the green category based on their regional factors. Please keep in mind that these categories all are considered as part of the stage 3 reopening. Green does not mean returning to pre-COVID-19 normal. All of the public health guidance for stage 3 reopening is still applicable, and some areas face more enhanced controls than others. Next slide, please. As Claude mentioned, we have started self-screening. It's clear from the reported cases in Ottawa and in the province that there is a need for us to continue to adhere to all of the control measures, from frequent hand washing, good hygiene practices, to mask wearing, physical distancing, and self-screening. Today, we're beginning to require self-screening to access our campuses, and it's gone extremely well. I understand we've had close to 3,500 downloads of the app since we introduced it on November 2nd, and we're working on tracking our numbers for people who are actually using the app today. Certainly my appreciation to everyone for subscribing to the use of this app so diligently. We've introduced this app through the College Mobile Safety app to help facilitate self-screening. Since the beginning of the reopening, we've required that students and employees use the Provincial self-screening tool that was available on a public website. But by introducing this enhancement, it helps provide assurance that self-screening is being done consistently. It's an important measure in the inventory of public health controls to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. Self-screening can help prevent infections from occurring on campuses. Ottawa Public Health recently released a model that demonstrated how a single case can lead to an outbreak with over 80 cases and 170 people self-isolating. But self-screening is one measure that we can take to help prevent cases like that from occurring on one of our campuses. The app is readily available through the Google and App Store. Sounds like a promotion, I know, but it is. And it's for obviously Androids and iPhones. The links have been included in recent communiques from the president. Certainly by going to the College Main coronavirus webpage, you can find the links there as well. Using it is really easy. After you use it for the first time, it remembers your information. So self-screening only takes a few seconds any time after that you may come to campus. As Claude mentioned, it can be done manually at the door as well if you don't have a device that can handle an app, or if for some reason it's not available to you. So with that, I think I've come to the end of my time for today. Happy to take any questions when we move into the Q&A portion of the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Very informative. And I'm sure while it may spur some questions from our audience, I know it will also have answered several questions from our audience as well. So thank you for that update. Before we go to our Q&A, one thing we promised to at our last town hall was to come back to you with some answers. I know some of your questions, perhaps either our response was not complete or we said, I'll have to go and research this and come back to you. And we have a couple of those that we would like to report back on before we get to the Q&A proper. So Laura, can I turn it over to you?
Yes, thank you, Claude. Appreciate that. So just some closing the loop. There was a question last town hall about the ability for us to recruit peer tutors. And so we do have 80 peer tutors for fall 2020. Certainly the COVID pandemic has somewhat impacted our ability to recruit students. Last fall we had 105. So we are somewhat short of our normal numbers, and we do traditionally have some gaps. For example, highly specialized programs or very short programs 1 year. So, we'll continue to work on that, and we have been, but I do encourage you, if you are noticing any gaps, to please work with the Student Learning Center to help identify those gaps, and we'll work together to see how we can fill those. I know, for example, for 1 year programs, we do go to recent graduates, to our alumni, to see if they can help with that, if we are having difficulty finding any in-year students. So just wanted to give an update with regards to that. The other one is, there was a question about student fees for winter and would there be any reductions. We did talk about tuition stays as is. Students are getting their credentials. They are getting their instruction. So really this is about ancillary fees for students. And so given that most of our services have been able to move in a remote delivery environment, there are some that have had some modest decreases. For example, in-person event, campus life, the reduction of varsity sport events, so that has been reduced as well. So that amounts to just a little over $28 a term. And so for fall and winter terms, it's $56 reduction for students. Also, just to know, really relax the rules on the ability for students to opt out of UPass if that's something that actually has a significant cost to it, but if the student can't benefit from that, there's opt-out available. So that's what's happening with regards to student fees. And then just finally on on this quality of the student timetable. Just to reiterate, last meeting we did talk about that there's less than 1% of our learners that have exceeded the guidelines for the quality of the student timetable. We continue to work on that. But we're also doing an extra deep dive this term as well, extra close look at the impact of remote learning on the student timetable. So our work is underway there. We'll continue looking at that. It's a new reality for us, and so we'll continue to make sure we understand what those impacts are, improve where we can, and work our way through that. So hopefully that answers those questions, and if not, please feel free to use the Q&A section, and maybe I can provide more clarity or understand your question better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. All right, so we will now turn to the pre-submitted questions that have been posted electronically prior to the town hall. Each question will have its own slide. There were a couple of questions we received that were very similar. So in those instances, we have paraphrased and put the questions together, and also in keeping with our practice of our college's core values. So if we can go to the first question. Okay, so I'll read them and then we'll turn to whoever will provide the answer to that question. So will support staff be able to carry over any vacation days beyond June 30th? If so, how many? If no decision has been made, when will the decision be made so that we as employees can plan for our own wellness and not be left to the last minute like last summer? So maybe I'll turn it over to Maureen.
Thank you, Claude. One of the strategies within the Workforce Pandemic Mitigation Plan was to manage the impact of the pandemic. And one of those options was to restrict the carryover for vacation days to 5 days for the 2019-20 accumulation, and to focus on reducing all excess vacation. We have seen great improvement on this reduction, and we are committed to ensuring that employees plan their vacation accumulation with their managers. Going forward, the college will follow the collective agreement and the terms and conditions for administrative staff. What we are asking for is if an individual wishes to carry over excess vacation into the next vacation year, please work with your manager to request approval and develop a plan confirming when you will take the excess vacation. The college is supportive of working with employees with respect to planning to ensure that anyone that is in a position of having carryover excess vacation will have a plan to use the days within a reasonable period of time.
Okay, thank you very much, Maureen. Looking to see if, is there anything, Diane, that you need to add, or you're good? All good. All right, thank you. Our next question. There seems to be confusion about whether a faculty member can make camera on a requirement for remotely delivered Zoom classes. Can this happen, yes or no? I'll turn over to Chris Jansen.
Well, thanks, Claude, and certainly thanks for the question. I'm glad of it. I don't want there to be any confusion. I realize that I've been asked to give a yes or no answer, and I'll start with that, but I am going to expand on it just a little bit later on. The short answer to the question is no. But I also want to recognize that there's a difference between camera on for recording purposes, or simply to require video on for an entire class. Now they're related, and I understand that. And when printed answers to these questions come out, I will include 2 links in that answer. One of which is to the Learning and Teaching Services remote teaching frequently asked questions page, and the other is the Zoom security and privacy guidelines page. However, in both cases, really what it comes down to is it really is not in keeping with the college's core values to take steps that mandate a student give up their right to privacy. We need to recognize that our classes being delivered remotely is not exactly the same thing as having a student come to a public place and sit in a class. Our students are very often in their homes. They have family in the background. They have other things going on. And it's simply not possible to have that video on and have some semblance of privacy. So getting back to the question, on a regular basis, whether you're recording or simply asking a student to turn the video on for class, they should not be required to do so. Thanks, Claude.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next question. All right, in the interest of mental health, overall well-being and financial stability, when will the college be able to resume quote unquote normal activity and bring students and staff back to the college? Great question. And I think as I've intimated in a number of my communiques to our college community for both our learners and our employee, it would be fantastic if we were able to do this as soon as possible. We are working with our public health units, both here in Ottawa and in the region in which we serve, in both Renfrew County for Pembroke and Lanark County for Perth, to make sure that we're in step with their efforts to mitigate the transmission of the virus in the public at large and in all the facilities that are being reopened. And we're also working with our ministry as well. We worked with them when we closed the college. We are going to work with them when we reopen. Again, there's going to be some differences perhaps from region to region, as intimated by the recent announcement from the province for regional implementation of the reopening. However, it would, at this point, those are the two agencies we're working with in order to resume any further activity. Right now, we're operating in what I will call hybrid mode, where we have some learners on campus for their essential hands-on activities that cannot be done in any other fashion. And for those, we've taken tremendous step to ensure everyone's safety. There was an assessment of the labs, or shop facilities beforehand. We've made sure we have traffic patterns folded into this, limited access through limited entrances. So a lot went into our current posture. And given the numbers we're currently seeing in Ottawa, in our region, it would not be my advice to reopen anytime soon. So there's going to be a series of decisions that will need to be made, and evidence and data we'll need to see in conversations with our public health and with the ministry before we can resume what we deem normal activity. It will be some time. Again, it will depend on when do we get the vaccine, when a vaccine that is effective, etc. So we're certainly staying on top of this, and certainly something that is on our mind, because there's nothing more we would love than to be able to resume normal activity. But again, I come back to my number one priority is to keep the health and safety of our learners and our employee topmost in our mind. And for that, that's the posture we need to adapt right now. I'll ask Colin if there's anything else he would like to add to this.
No, Claude, I think that captures it quite well, where we're at and what the trajectory for this might be.
Okay, thank you, Colin. All right, we'll go to our next question. There have been talks about layoffs since the start of the pandemic. I can speak for my fellow colleagues and myself that the constant fear of losing our jobs has put significant stress on us for the last 9 months. The college says it puts priority on mental health. So what is the college doing about this continuous stressor? Is there any news about future layoffs? And is the college willing to make any commitments to help alleviate stress through the pandemic? I'll turn this question over to Diane.
Thanks, Claude. And thank you for this question. We understand that job stability is so important to individuals, and we also understand that given the impact of the pandemic, this is a concern for many individuals in our society as well, not just for our employees at the college. So the issues of layoffs I've said it before in answer to this particular question at different town halls. It is a confidential issue between the college, the union, and the impacted individual. And it's not that I want to sidestep this question. I'm not. I'm trying to be as open as possible. It's just not an open communication event, and the college is not able to openly communicate these decisions to individuals that aren't impacted directly. There are clauses in the collective agreement with respect to confidentiality, and I encourage you to discuss with your union representatives if there's questions to the process and why can't the college make a declaration if there's going to be future layoffs. From a mental health perspective and help to deal with the stress, I want to mention that to help our employees who find the current environment very stressful, we have exceptional support mechanisms that can be accessed through our EAP provider, and that's Monroe Chappelle. The service they provide range from in-person support, online support, and the provision of web tools and webinars to assist all of us during this time period. And I encourage you to take advantage of that. And I think that's the best way I can answer that question for now. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate the question as well, and thank you, Diane, for weighing in on this and providing your candid answer. We'll go to the next question. What is the status of the work from home policy, and what is the expected release date of this policy? Diane, back to you.
Thank you. So the work continues on the development of a flexible work arrangement policy. And the nature of this policy requires the college to explore many different issues before an official release. The flexible work policy is being developed to include a variety of flexible work options in addition to remote work. So for example, things from the collective agreement will be picked up in these policies as well for different types of flexible work arrangements. As such, the policy will be structured to ensure that the college has appropriate direction with respect to who can participate, geographical expectations, and individual performance expectations and health and safety requirements for all of these areas. This policy is being developed with a view towards a future based upon several different learnings that we have had since the pandemic commenced. So it's not just remote working, it's much broader than that. Our goal is to release the policy once we have a comfort level that it properly reflects the future environment that the college wishes to embrace. And our target still remains the beginning of Q3, so January time period. Thank you.
Okay, that's awesome, Diane. Thank you. Our next question. Okay, well, that's a long question, so bear with me here. The province of Ontario has permitted grade school children to return to school, but at Algonquin College, for the most part, adult students are not permitted to return to campus to continue their studies. Those students and staff who are on campus wear PPE, that's personal protective equipment, and now we have the COVID-19 self-assessment app for daily access to campus. Considering that this is the social environment we will be living in for some time, isn't it about time that the college leadership work to manage the risk and return most students to campus rather than avoid the risk altogether? That's, again, a similar question to one that I answered previously. I'll turn this one over to Colin for added comments.
Thank you. You know, I think I can assure you that the college leadership has been doing little else but maintaining a strong focus on managing the risks associated with returning more students to campus. But we can't avoid the risks associated with COVID-19 altogether. Recognizing that the strategies that we've adopted to take reasonable measures to manage the risk to within acceptable levels and within the public policy and public health parameters. All of the infection prevention and infection control measures, from hand washing to physical distancing, mask usage, and PPE, still can't avoid the risk of COVID-19, only reduce it. Mm-hmm. That's why, despite those measures across our community, regional, provincial health authorities are still continuing to deal with outbreaks, and they're continually adjusting control measures to respond to increased infection rates during this second wave. The college, in a much smaller setting, is doing much the same and adjusting as we move through this.
Yeah, it's an important question. It's a question we'll continue to hear about because I could tell you, it's going to take continued effort until we have something that we can go and get inoculated with, and something that would guarantee we would not catch the virus. We're going to need to take the measures we're taking now in order to prevent its spread. And so, we continue to lean on all of us, our diligence in order to maximize our chances of keeping the virus at bay from our campuses. So again, I want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing to keep us safe once we're on campus, but also off campus in our communities as well. All right, can I go to the next question, please? Okay, are we for sure working from home this winter? And if so, should we be canceling our parking and asking for a refund if we have already started to pay for it? I'll turn this over to Dwayne.
So the current plan is that we will continue to work remotely wherever possible in this upcoming winter term. That's the current assumption we're making. So with respect to parking passes that may have been purchased over the winter term, there is an option to get a refund up until January 8th. So if you have a pass but it's not being utilized on a daily basis and you'd like a refund, please contact our parking office and they can help you out. And we do have other options if you have to come to campus on an occasional basis. We have, of course, as you know, there's daily parking options for those that need to drive to campus. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Dwayne. All right, our next question. All right, now that the restrictions are being lifted and the gym and restaurants are opening, when will the nursing labs or any healthcare labs be opening for students to come in and practice their skills? How are the labs prioritized and the decisions made as to which are allowed and which are not? Sounds like an academic question. I'll turn it over to Chris Jensen.
It does indeed, Claude. Thank you. There's a lot packed into that question. And I want to make sure I get to all the parts of it. But let me reiterate what Claude and Colin and Dwayne and others have already said, and what I've said previously. For the fall term in particular, but as we look forward to the winter term, the general rule of thumb, the guiding principle, is that everything that can be done remotely will be done remotely, simply to continue to mitigate the risk of the transmittal of the virus. The flip side to that, though, and the practice that we took for the fall, is that if it cannot be done remotely, every precaution that we can manage will be put in place so that we can have students back on campus doing those things that, again, cannot be done in a remote environment. And so I note that we already have over 7,000 students on campus at some point in any given week in the fall term. So the question around how were decisions made around prioritization, the answer really begins with the notion of what cannot be done remotely. There were still a number of things that we could not find a way to do safely. And so things were postponed or suspended. And so I bring to mind the example of our dental labs. We have, over the course of the past few months, undergone a fairly extensive renovation at a not a small price tag to be able to bring those dental students back who are not currently able to do that work to a new environment with new physical infrastructure in place that will allow them to do those activities safely. And in terms of being able to come in and practice skills in an open lab during a time when something's not scheduled, one of the major precautions that we had to take for the fall was to decrease the number of the section sizes decrease the section size of these face-to-face delivered practical teaching components. So a lab that might have had 30 students before now might have 8, because that's all we can safely put into the space at one time. So as you do the math and you think through that, what that really means is that these physical spaces are being utilized much more heavily than they normally are. And so the decisions around being able to have students practice, aside from trying to determine what a safe protocol would be for that unsupervised work, the spaces simply aren't available. They're already scheduled during any sort of normal hour. And so that's also playing a role in the decisions to not have that type of activity on campus. So I still will stop with that and really sincerely hope that I've answered your questions. So.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Our next question. Okay, massages are now being offered to faculty and students, which is contact within the 6-foot rules, or 2 meters. When the need for healthcare is so high, it seems very strange to me that there are limited labs being run at the college. Of all programs being offered, should these not have been the first to get back into the labs? Healthcare providers are taught from the very first lab how to properly wear PPE so we are safe. Hands-on practice in a lab setting is a huge component of healthcare to build up student confidence and competencies before they practice on real clients. Again, I think that sounds like a question for you, Chris.
I think so, Claude. And again, much of this has been touched on before, so let me highlight a couple of points from previous answers, particularly around the use of PPE. And yes, while the healthcare providers are taught from a very early stage, and I might add that the scientists as well, how to properly use PPE, it's not 100%. And as we continue to try to work with students that are not seasoned practitioners, we are trying very hard to mitigate the risks that we are exposing our students to. We also have some fairly stringent public health guidelines around physical distancing. And note that there have been some very specific cases, mostly in the health area, where we have brought students in and done some work that is within the 6-foot rule. The paramedic students that Claude mentioned earlier as the recipients of the Changemaker Award are among those examples. And again, the dental labs, the added precautions that we are putting in place to be able to allow that to happen safely. It's a balance. It is a balance. It's between the risk and the learning opportunities of the students. And that gets me back to the original statement of if it can be done remotely, it should be done remotely. So the decisions around what can and cannot be done remotely have been done in conjunction with the faculty early on, so that the students are able to meet all of the necessary learning outcomes of their courses, of their individual courses, and mitigate that risk. But Claude, I think I'll stop with that and turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Our next question. Okay, there appears to be a technical issue on college devices when connected to VPN. Zoom calls, MS Teams, Outlook, etc. stop working when the device is kicked off the internet/Wi-Fi. Tracking these occurrences for some time shows this happens when connected to VPN only. My household devices, not on VPN, are still operating on the internet/Wi-Fi when this happens to my AC device. Most colleagues have shared the same experience. While the ITS team are open to taking calls, the only response is, quote, check your internet connection, unquote, or, quote, you will have to bring your device onto campus, unquote. Is there a larger issue happening here affecting most users? Is there a response other than to have to come on campus? I'll turn this over to Dwayne.
Okay, thanks, Claude. Yes, I could say I experienced this myself working from home. I have good VPN days and bad VPN days. Today's a good day. I've been using VPN just about all day without getting kicked off. And there are other days I can't seem to go an hour without getting kicked off. So we did go to our ITS department to ask them to look into this a little further. And they did note that the ticketing system doesn't indicate that there are any trending issues identified with this. And there's minimal VPN related tickets. However, they did provide 3 potential causes for this situation that many of us are experiencing. I think the first one we all know, the VPN connection, it is set to disconnect after 12 hours. So if you've been on for 12 hours, and I know some of us are, and we leave it on, and we might walk away and leave the VPN connected, it automatically disconnects at 12 hours. The second case is that they've seen cases where a user's internet connection will go down. And so in your home, your internet, whoever your service provider is, perhaps the connection goes down, and it may not be noticeable on your other household devices, perhaps on your television or another computer that are not connected to VPN. And the reason for that is many web pages are static, so they don't change perhaps during that brief outage. And services such as YouTube and Netflix, they cache content for read ahead, and they store that data. So they're designed to accommodate those blips so that when you're watching a show, perhaps on YouTube, you wouldn't see that interruption. Whereas with VPN, once there's an interruption, you lose your VPN and what you're working on gets interrupted. And then the third case is it's possible that the user may be running an out-of-date version of the Cisco VPN client. So to confirm you have the most current VPN, you can contact 5555, extension 5555, or email 5555@algonquincollege.com to confirm that you are running the latest version and acquire some assistance in updating your client. So ITS Client Care will they'll attempt to resolve all of these issues remotely, and they typically like to work with users over the phone and potentially connect to the user's computer remotely. I would just encourage everybody, if you experience this, log a ticket with ITS and very specifically identify VPN interruption as the issue. And that'll create a bit of a trend with the issues, and ITS will, they'll see that trend happening and can do some more research into that. And I'm guilty, I've not submitted a ticket on this one. I kind of just been accepting these little hiccups in technology, but I will strive to do that as well, just so ITS can gather the data and the number of instances it's happening and perhaps get to a resolution for us. But that's the response on this one today.
Okay, much appreciated, Dwayne. I think that's it for our pre-submitted questions. That's it. All right, so as I mentioned at the start of our pre-submitted questions, if you have submitted a question in advance and did not hear or see it in the last little bit, it was probably because of the close proximity of the questions that we received, and then we grouped them together and paraphrased them into one question. So if somehow we missed a nuance of your question and you still wish to ask it, feel free to ask a clarifying question today as part of our live Q&A. All right, so we are now going to go into our live questions, and we've got a couple of statements to make before we do that. So again, as I mentioned during our first portion of our afternoon when we were doing our housekeeping, ask your question live at the panel. So you raise your hand using the raise hand feature. You will be selected to ask your question live. You will need to unmute yourself and then chat with the panel members. If you're using the Q&A chat box, which is at the bottom there. You can type in your question and it will be read out by moi and answered by the subject matter expert. If time is limited and we can't get to all the questions, I'm going to be asking you to make sure you put your question in the Q&A, and then we'll answer those questions after the town hall, and then we'll post the answers on my AC after the town hall. Okay, so we're good. We have, I'm looking at, we have 4 blue hands and we have 5 more in the Q&A. So yeah, I'll start with a live question and then we'll alternate between live and the Q&A. How's that? That works for everybody? All right, so Veronica, you're up first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Tart, and I wear many hats at the college.
You're muted, Veronica.
Sorry, my screen just changed to being on the panel, so there we go.
Okay.
Apologize for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica, and I wear a couple of hats at the college. I'm a union rep. I am support staff. I am also a student. I have 2 quick questions to ask. The first one was a couple of town halls ago, I asked a question to Chris Jensen about the availability of courses and accommodations for COVID time zones and how to get courses done during remote learning. Chris, I did take your suggestion and contacted my professors. All 4 of them were unable to change the times. So I wasn't able to register for any courses this semester. I have 7 courses to complete to graduate, and I cannot be a successful candidate in any of the job competitions that I've been applying for and considered for an interview because I haven't completed my education yet. So the question is there any other alternatives to finish a bachelor degree at the college?
The question you ask, is there any other alternative to finish a bachelor's degree at the college? That answer would need to be no, you need to finish those courses. There are, of course, things like prior learning and assessment recognition, the PLAR. There's the possibility of taking a course at another institution and having that transfer in. But in terms of finishing the coursework within the residency requirements at the college, you would need to finish those courses at the college. Now, the question around changing times is something that I'd actually want to have a conversation with the leadership for your program and with the faculty for your program to try to determine why it is not possible, because I don't know the answer to the question, why it is not possible to find an asynchronous solution concurrently with a synchronous solution to the delivery of courses. This is something that I have been hoping faculty have been trying to do, particularly in recognition of international students, but also in recognition that we have students that have quite a different timeline of life at the moment under COVID than they did before. Job requirements, family requirements, living arrangements, access to computer, all of that has been changing for all of our students. And so I don't know, I honestly, I don't know how to answer the specifics of your question, and I would be happy to meet with you at a later time to talk about the specifics to see if I can't help find a solution. But for now, between PLAR, taking a course elsewhere and taking the existing courses here, those would be your options for finishing your degree.
Okay, well, I'll take that response for now, Chris, and I'll follow up with an email, and then maybe we can chat and expand on it.
I'd be happy to. Please reach out to my assistant Nancy Tremblay, and let's find a time together that we can talk, and I can get more of the details of the challenges that you're facing.
Okay, thank you. Second question is for Diane. Just a comment for Diane as well. I understand completely 100% that the process needs to remain confidential, especially when the member's going through it. So for the college-wide, I've been one of those affected members. My department has been heavily hit by COVID because we don't have jobs that can be done remotely at home. We're face-to-face serving students and clients. There's nothing stopping the college for stating after the process is done how many people have been affected, how many people have been redeployed, and what is happening after. It's not a final process in the support staff role because we're under the furlough. So there's nothing stopping from giving a rough number update. Example, X amount of employees were affected, X amount have been redeployed, and X amount are on the furlough. The reason why I'm bringing this up again, as a union rep, my phone is going off 24/7 with people stressed out to the gills. Are we going to be next? Who's going to be hit next? This cone of silence, I understand if the process is going for a particular person, it needs to remain private. But people having that cone of stress is not a healthy environment for any employee. I'm speaking for support staff because we do have the furlough. So I'm speaking for my group in particular. I'm sure other groups are being quite as heavily affected as well. And if people can have some way to have a picture of what could potentially happen, which areas are being affected, do I need to start planning for, maybe I need to upgrade my education. Maybe I need to upgrade some skills. It may be putting members and staff in a better position when the actual final stuff happens. So in the case of support staff, when the furlough agreement finishes. It's future planning, and it's not going to hurt anybody at the college by having that information. So that's just my feedback and comment for the college as a whole. By being partially prepared is not hurting anybody. People can prepare better if they know what could potentially be affected. So I'm giving my department as an example. Campus services, we're not going back to full open campus on winter. So the potential for people coming back, all of them, to their jobs in winter is extremely low because of the scenario for COVID. If there's stuff that people that can do right now, they're being affected in that group, take some courses, upgrade some skills, having some tools to get them ready for the current situation, that would be a good thing that the college could currently do. So as I said, I'm just throwing it as information out there as being a member who has been affected. And Chris, that's why I'm a little bit stressed out of getting my education done right now. So that's why I'm being vocal and honest with everybody. So that's why I want to think of not only the mental health, but think also, okay, future planning. Where do I need to go next? Right now, we have a lot of high-level jobs that we don't have the employees ready or trained with that set of skills. If we're looking for future planning for staff, that's not a bad thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Diane, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to thank, yes, thank you very much. I do want to thank Veronica for her candor and recognize, especially coming forward with an individual story, it puts the context to some of the other questions that we received in the pre-submitted and one that's coming up in the Q&A. I'm just going to answer it now because you very eloquently stated the impact on the individuals, and you did recognize the confidentiality component. And you are right that after it is implemented, there is a possibility that the college could then go back and say there has been X amount of people impacted from a furlough perspective, from a redeployment. So I'm going to take that away and work with my team as to how we can communicate. I'm really, again, I'm concerned about the confidentiality. I'm concerned about an open communique, but I hear you. You're making a very impassioned plea for more information, and people crave information, because if you don't get information directly from the college, that's where rumors abound and they become fact. And so I do hear you. I'm so respectful though of the confidentiality. I'm concerned about breaching any of that, but perhaps there's better ways that we can work with our union partners on this to say what can we be communicating, what's everyone comfortable with, what will not breach any of the collective agreements, to help all of our employees understand the situation that's in front of us. So I just wanted to thank Veronica for that. And I think that does address an upcoming question in the Q&A. The only thing that was expanded in the Q&A that was going to be upcoming was, why can't the college release information about part-time admin and faculty who've been affected? And my response to that is, I would respond the same way from a confidentiality. It's not something that I would broadcast. It would be something that's very individual. And the difference for certainly admin and part-time, not part-time support because they're covered by the collective agreement, but other part-time is it's in an individual process between the college and the member and or the employee. And it's not something, again, that I would broadcast, but perhaps there is a way that we can shed some light on some things that's future focused, so that our College Employment Stability Committee, both academic and support, can maybe potentially access some of the employment stability funds for future proofing our workforce, which is, I think, one of the things that is underlying your comments. So again, I just wanted to thank Veronica for her candor.
Okay. I will as well. So thank you, Veronica, for your two questions, or a question and comment, and to echo both Chris and Diane in the responses. I will now go to a question, the first question from our written Q&A. And this one goes as follows. So given the financial deficit that Algonquin College is facing, what cost-saving measures or cuts are planned to address this? Thank you. Maybe I'll turn this one over to Dwayne.
Yeah, thanks, Claude. Yes, so there are several approaches that we're taking to address the deficit, and we're giving regular updates to the executive team and the Audit Risk Management Committee of the board and the Board of Governors on how we're dealing with this. One of the first things we did was we restricted discretionary expense budgets. So travel, much PD that might have been budgeted, maybe some office supplies, those kind of discretionary expenses that we have in our various accounts, we've restricted those for this year. We have imposed on hiring for vacancies. So any request to hire for a vacancy must come before the executive team for approval. So we're keeping a close eye on that to really assess the need. There has been workforce adjustments, as Diane spoke to this there. So there has been some layoffs, unfortunately, where service areas, the demand for those services are no longer there, and we've significantly reduced the hiring of students and other than full-time employees. We have been undertaking efforts to reduce our vacation liability, so that has a positive impact on our operating results, especially at the end of the year when we report on that liability within our financial statements, and so that's being undertaken. We've done a comprehensive review of all of our capital and SIP projects. So SIP is our Strategic Investment Priorities projects. And we've reduced a number of those projects. We've deferred a number of them, and some we've just canceled. We just can't afford to undertake some of those projects. We've worked with the Bank of Montreal that holds the debt on our student residence and our Police and Public Safety Institute, and they've been agreeable to deferring some of our debt payments. So that's helped us conserve some cash this year. So that's been done. We're drawing on the contingency accounts that we put in place. So we've always maintained some contingency budgets in our operating budgets for unforeseen events. So we've drawn down those accounts. We've reduced our margin requirements on our various business units. So our net revenue or revenue less expenses margins, we've reduced those requirements, which has resulted in the need to draw on reserves. And the board has given us permission to draw on a level of reserves up to $19 million in this fiscal year. And coming up, we are going to be undertaking a services review, looking at all the services we're offering and seeing if there's opportunity for further efficiencies. So those are all the short-term things we're doing to address the deficit in this year and next year. And then looking out a little further, the medium to long term, you may have heard of the strategic exercise to restore financial sustainability. That's a goal in our board business plan. So we're just putting a working group together to identify and develop a strategic framework to help the college be restored to financial sustainability in the medium to long term.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. We'll go now to a live voice question. The next person that their hand up is Martin Lee.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking my call. So I hope everyone can hear me. But
yes, we can, Martin.
Perfect. So Martin Lee, OPSU 415 steward. My question is around the college-private partnership. So there are a lot of unknowns swirling around it, certainly from my end. I do know that there have been some media reports that the college is currently looking outside of Ontario and Quebec. So given these alternative jurisdictions over education, how does the college propose to ensure quality of content and quality of care to our faculty and importantly to our international students who are likely to be those who are most affected and those who are most in need of the college's core values?
Great question, Martin. Chris, can I turn this question over to you?
Sure. Hey, Martin, thanks for the question. There's a lot of things that we are still exploring and still working out with this potential public college private partnership. But I do want to assure you that first, in whatever, if we end up, if, and it is still an if, we end up going down this path, the same quality assurance process to curriculum will be applied to any programming in the PCPP, as is for any program that's delivered at any of our other 4 campuses. Likewise, the student experience, the province of Ontario has mandated that we provide the same assurance of student experience for any student in the public college private partnership as would happen on any one of our 4 campuses. To the extent that within the new strategic mandate agreement, which is version 3, so SMA 3, the KPIs, which are going to be different than the KPIs that we used to know, the measures of our effectiveness, if you will apply not only to students at any of our 4 campuses, but also students in a public college private partnership. So the college has a very strong vested interest in ensuring that the experience these students have and the quality of programming that they receive meets Algonquin standards and is in keeping with the college core values, which has been one of the metrics by which we have weighed any potential partner as we've been sorting through this whole process. Do their values align with our values so that we can ensure that the students get that right experience and high quality education?
Does that answer your question, Martin?
It does. I could spend a long time asking questions about this, and you've got other people, but I'd very much like to follow up with folks about it if possible.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, Martin. We'll go to a written Q&A question. The next question is from Judy. It says, will the college continue acknowledging academic work adaptation for the winter 21 semester? Chris, sounds like a question for you.
Thanks, Judy. I will keep this one as short as I can. The answer is absolutely yes. And following the same structure and same format as we did for the fall term. So as long as there are still courses that need to be adapted, we will recognize the work necessary to adapt them to a remote delivery. And that applies to full-time and any other than full-time faculty member. So any course that needs to be adapted, the appropriate academic employee will be compensated for that adaptation work.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. That was a short and sweet answer to the point. I love it. All right, our next in-person question. Oh, no, but it addressed it head on. That was good. Sean Petticost, you have the next question, live question.
Hi, thank you, Claude. So my question is for Chris. Are there, I'm aware of one intake suspension for the winter 2021 semester because I received an email literally an hour before the town hall. And that refers to the one of the gas programs in Ottawa. And I received the email because apparently the affected students are coming into my program because I coordinate the gas program in Pembroke. I'm just wondering if you could advise us as to if there are any other intake suspensions or, and if there are, what are the mitigating plans for those intakes? Thank you.
Sure, thanks for the question, Sean. I went back and forth long and hard over that decision around the particular gas program that you are referring to. And that decision was made as we typically do for program suspension, program intake suspensions, even before COVID. The challenge that we had was at this stage, I believe we had 4 students that had paid and 1 that had confirmed. But rather than cancel right away, I spent a great deal of time talking with the folks that run the program here in Ottawa, making sure that we had something available for a reasonable alternative for that group of students, which is why they are being offered an opportunity to take that program remotely through your program there in Pembroke. At this stage, I am not aware of other planned program suspensions for the winter term beyond what we had planned for. So we had a plan for winter. This particular gas program, we needed to make an enrollment-based decision. I am at this point not aware of other program level intake suspensions for the winter. However, as the enrollment, as the recruiting season progresses, in the coming 2 or maybe 3 weeks, if it becomes apparent that we have a program with very low intake, very low enrollment, we'll have to evaluate that at that time. So I hope that answers your question.
It did, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. All right, we'll go to a Q&A question. If staff are able to work remotely, do they have to notify their manager if they will be moving out of the city for some time? Okay, Diane, you want to take that one?
Yes, please. So short answer is yes. Now let me set the context for that. So, please notify your manager if you are moving outside of your current geographic area. So it's important for the employer to know, one, if you are in province, if you are close enough to the college that you would make recall back to the college very straightforward and easy to do. If you are out of the province, there's usually some repercussions with regards to WSIB, with regards to potential tax implications. There's potential benefit and pension implications. And so just to avoid some of that, you just let your manager know and let your manager know before you move. That would be really helpful. As an employer, we need to know where our employees are, if we need to recall them back to the college. So very short answer to that question is yes, please notify your manager.
And this has to do with terms and conditions, right, for our employees, right? So we want to make sure we have the right terms and conditions, and you know, whatever you signed years ago may no longer reflect your current arrangement if you were to go somewhere else. And
that's right.
In addition to the implications you've just listed as well. Okay. All right. So thank you. We'll go to a live question. I have Judy Puritt with her hand up. Judy, over to you.
Okay, that's a long process to get unmuted when it's a webinar.
No worries. That's okay. We're happy to wait.
So I thought I could just have a written in question today. It was not clear. So this is undoubtedly going to be a follow-up for Chris. The question that I asked concerning acknowledgement of adaptation really was a reference to continuing adaptation, because yeah, we've done some initial adaptation, but you know, this is now going to be a second round, and I'm just wondering if there's going to be a level of support, recognizing that we continue to be in a very unusual situation, and the stress continues to rise, and the desire for a return to normalcy continues to rise. And if there is a support to try to create classes that engage students in a better fashion than what we have managed in our first endeavors in the spring and summer, and then just now in the fall.
All right. So the work of adaptation that I referred to in the original answer I gave is one thing, and then the regular, and perhaps regular is not the right word to use here, but the normal process of continuous improvement of courses kicks in at some point. And so the decision was made that once the course was adapted to remote delivery, that within the swift calculation of preparation and assessment, the normal process of continuous improvement needs to occur. Having said that, I have always left room and suggested that for any particular situation, any course, any faculty member that has something above and beyond that normal expectation, something that it doesn't fit into the SWIFT formula or the process that we've used for adaptation, should be having a conversation with their chair so that a reasonable assignment of that work can be made on that SWIFT.
I find the response is really not what I was hoping to hear, Chris, primarily because your comment on continuous normal improvement, I would say we are in anything but normal times, and the effort involved in trying to stay up to date with what is pedagogically sound, still meeting our professional requirements, trying to respond to students who have the most legitimate and phenomenally diverse reasons for requiring exceptions on how they can do a class. I've run numerous outside regular test hours because we're trying to support the learners on being successful. And just wondering if there should not be a further acknowledgement of this required adaptation.
Claude, I saw you move. It looked like you were leaning forward. There's a number of parts to the answer to that question, Judy. And part of it is I do know that, again, I keep coming back to some of my favorite people in the world at this point, the learning and teaching services staff. I know that they have been working with large numbers of faculty to rethink courses, rethink how we go about doing things, rethink assessments, rethink tests, rethink activities, such that they first of all enable the flexibility for our learners that our learners need at this point, but at the same time are not overly burdening the faculty with massive amounts of additional one-on-one time with each individual student, and to be able to find ways to provide feedback, provide guidance, and still respond to student need that are not the amazing, fabulous, wonderful things that the faculty are doing right now in support of our students. And really to be changing how we are approaching that work, and recognizing that there's a continuum between that emergency remote delivery that we did, the remote delivery that we are doing, and a fully prepared, fully developed online course. And there's a skill set that changes as well. So I need to make sure that the support is there, so that faculty can continue down that path, that continuum, if you will, to be able to meet the needs of the students without unduly burdening their own workloads. And I know that LTS is there in doing that, but in terms of a broad campus-wide change in how we assign work, no. I don't see that as being feasible.
We'll have to save it for some other time. I hear things you're saying, and when you say we're rethinking it and LTS is working diligently with faculty, it is a considerably greater engagement that LTS is doing with faculty right now than they have ever done in previous semesters. It speaks to the tremendous levels of change. I'm not saying permanently forever forward you have to change how work is calculated. I'm just saying that in these conditions, the work calculation is perhaps in need of a reconsideration.
I hear you, Judy, and you're right. Let's continue that conversation, and let's have that conversation with people other than you and me at the table. I'd love to make sure that I bring Diane and her team in, and perhaps other members of ACET as well.
Thank you.
Okay, no, it's a great question, Judy. Thank you. And I know that we're experimenting in a lot of ways, and as we were thrown into remote learning in order to, again, be in line with the priorities we set for ourselves to see to the continuity of the academic learning and student success. It was quite a pivot, quite a shift, and it's going to be an ongoing experiment, not just for us, but most institutions are doing the same thing. So are there things we can experiment and that would benefit others? Are there things others are doing that we could benefit from and learn from as well? I think no single institution is going to be an island on their own. I think there's going to be opportunity to learn from one another and collaborate. And I hear you that there may be some things that a faculty may have tried, didn't really work really well. How do you retool? How do you pivot for the next course version? So a great conversation that needs to be had. And I think what I've heard here is a willingness to do that. So I appreciate everybody's rolling up their sleeve and attacking this particular issue. Thank you. I'll go next to a Q&A written question. This one here from Raymond. It says, what is the current status on the SIS ERP project? So that's the Student Information System Enterprise Resource Planning Project. Maybe I'll turn this to Laura because she's the executive sponsor.
Thanks, Claude. What I can say to people on this is this does continue to be a priority for the college. And the reason why it continues to be a priority is that we have an outdated technology right now. We actually have a homegrown system that's over 25 years old. And we look at our 24 Ontario colleges, we are the last college to large college to have a homegrown system. I think there's 2 other very small colleges that continue to do so. And I would say that is the norm for most post-secondary. They've long ago converted away from a homegrown system. So we have about right now 20 people on the project. We have committees and working groups that continue to work on this, and we are getting close to the end of a request for proposal stage to seek public procurement, to seek a new solution and a company that would implement that new software solution. So we're almost there, and I am hopeful. I'm planning for early December announcement, and I hope, I believe we will be on track for that announcement in early December. So that's where we're at with the project.
Yeah, again, a significant project for the college, one that has certainly the eyes of many on, because we've learned to live with our legacy system. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship, almost, like, if I can use that term. Those who know it very well, it works for you. For some, it's something that from yesteryears. So I appreciate the fantastic work that Laura, that Krista Pearson, that Lois Pollock, and who are the 2 co-leads for the project, and their team are doing to move this forward through our approval process with our board. And we will look forward to the reveal shortly. So thank you. Okay, we don't have another hand up, so I'm going to continue with our Q&A. This one is from Gino, and it goes as follows. Can you talk a bit about the college's plan to outsource some programs to the private college sector and what the impact that would have? Thank you. A bit of a similar question to one that was posed earlier by Mark, I believe. So maybe I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
Sure. Hey, Gino, thanks for the question. And again, I understand and respect there's a lot of questions about this public college private partnership. And so to say we are outsourcing probably isn't technically correct. We are setting up a new partnership, and with new students, and quite frankly, it may result in new programming. This partnership will not result in the cessation of any program on any of our 4 campuses. But if anything, it will increase the reach of those programs to other areas of the province. It will attract new students to the programming. And by the nature of potential partners, it may give us access to new programming that we can bring back to our existing 4 campuses. Matter of fact, the question around programming and what else can be brought to the table is another one of those factors that we are paying attention to as we explore potential public college partnerships. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm certainly hoping so. But again, the impact to our existing enrollments, our existing programs, and our existing staffing, quite frankly, there shouldn't be any lowering, and perhaps an increase in the programming we have here. And Claude or Dwayne, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Well, what I will add is what I said earlier in the previous town hall, is that this in no way is intended to create a negative impact on the college. This is meant to create a win-win situation for ourselves and for our partner. If we can't strike that, it's a no-go. So for me, it's about ensuring that we create opportunities for people who may not choose to come to Algonquin, but would be able to have access to our programming in other parts of the country. And again, this is meant to focus primarily on international student enrollment. And again, starting off with baby steps and existing programming that we would offer elsewhere. So it's not outsourcing. Outsourcing would mean we're ceasing to operate or deliver a particular service or program here and have someone else do that. That is not the case. That's not the intent at all. The intent is to grow our market share. And in the process of doing this, we reap the benefit, and so does our partner. That's the first step. And the second step may be to explore what else the partner has to offer that we don't have. Although we're a comprehensive college, we don't offer everything to everyone. There may be opportunities to piggyback on programming we don't offer here that our learners could benefit from as well. So as I said, win-win or we go home. All right, I'll go next. I'm sorry, Dwayne, did you have anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, nothing. No, good covered. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Chris. Sean Pentecost has his hand up. So Sean, over to you for a live question.
Sorry. Thank you, Claude. So this is to follow up just on the concept of international. I noticed on our Workday Human Resources website for positions that are available that we are looking at hiring 4 senior regional managers for I believe it's Russia, the Americas, and Asia, I believe, if I remember seeing it correctly. I just want to get some clarity on what their mandate is and why we're doing this right now. Because a lot of our work internationally, we've had some success internationally, but we've also had some very costly mistakes internationally. And given where we are right now, I'm trying to understand the rationale as to why we're doing this right now and what exactly their mandate would be. Is it to bring more students to our campus, or is it to explore building campuses elsewhere? Because one of the in the advertisement, it talked about building relationships with companies and so on that exist in those areas. So any clarity you could provide for that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely, Sean. Chris, I know you don't have Ernest to help answer that, so I'll leave it to you, and maybe I can add as well.
All right, very good. Thanks, Sean. I think I've got this one, Claude.
Okay.
First, this is part of a reorg that's been planned for a while, and just to reassure folks, when you're seeing these new senior regional manager positions posted, they are from repurposed existing administrative positions. We are not increasing the number of managers. We are simply rearranging their duties, their roles, and their responsibilities. Their primary mandate, and one of the reasons that it's so important for us to do this and work and to do it now, is if you look at the regions even listed, Africa, the Americas, Central Asia. Right now, the vast majority of our international students that come to us from elsewhere are coming from India, and not even the entire country, but certain very specific regions of India and China. And so we recognize that due to the vagaries, if you will, of funding for post-secondary education, that we do have a reliance on international students. And in order to mitigate that risk, we need to diversify the students that are coming to Algonquin to study. They need to come from different regions in the world, such that when there is some disruption in one area, students from other areas are still able to come join us. it's important to do this now as we look at where we are. While you've gotten some fairly positive enrollment reports in the recent months, you need to recognize that what we're comparing ourselves to is not the original targets, but the targets that were adjusted for COVID. So really our total enrollments are about 85%, give or take, of what we had originally budgeted for. And while we are going to be meeting those new enrollment targets, we're still 15% behind where we had planned on being. And a fair number of those are international students. This is where our financial challenges come from. So it's really important at this time to be ensuring that we are maximizing our market share. We are diversifying the number of countries that our students are coming from, and still trying to grow our international student population even back to where it was before COVID hit, and a little bit beyond. We're never going to try to reach 50% international students. We're not going to grow and grow and grow without limits. There are limits to the maximum size we want that international percentage to be. However, at this point, we're not there yet, and we were going the wrong direction because of COVID. So that's really the reasons behind what we're doing and why we're doing it now. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. So the role of these folks is to draw people to us as opposed to us building elsewhere.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot that part of your question by accident. No, at this time, we are not actively trying to pursue setting up a new campus offshore. That's nowhere on the strategic horizon at this point. Certainly when a good opportunity comes along, we'd explore it, but it's not our plan. We don't have intentions. We're not actively pursuing, or I would say even passively pursuing a new campus offshore at this point.
Thank you very much, Chris.
If I can add as well, this may allow us to pursue opportunities for student experiences abroad as well. Canada lags behind many other countries in providing its student population an international experience. I think across Canada, I think we're at 3%, and that's mostly university, not colleges and institutes. So there's I see this as an opportunity if we can create linkages that allows us to send our students abroad for a term or for a few weeks. It certainly really broadens a person's perspective and creates richness of experience. So from an offshore perspective, that's what I'd like us to be able to capitalize on. But that won't be their first priority. As Chris mentioned, the priority will be to assist with diversification of our recruitment. Okay, I'm going to go to a written question now. And the question says, Claude, would you please provide an update on the public-private partnership that I referred in my opening remarks? So I'm hoping that the conversations that we've had, I know we've had several questions on the public college private partnerships. I certainly can talk about it a bit more if there's an aspect that we didn't cover, but my feeling is that we did cover that quite a bit. So if there's something more that the person is looking for, please feel free to either add to the Q&A or put up your hand and we'll have you speak. I'm going to go over to a live question here, and it's from Anne Fowl.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just a short notice regarding the international students, actually. So I recently started to teach in Algonquin College. So I do have I teach networking and security, and I have around 20 years of experience already in this area. I work for Nokia right now. And I think that this case for the international students, it makes a lot of sense. Now, because, well, from my perspective, when I added the line that I'm teaching in Algonquin College, actually, I got contacted, but already I think, and again, I am originally from Russia and I lived in Israel for a long time. So I actually got contacted by about tens of people, literally, that were interested in listening and understanding the options in the Algonquin College. Some of them knew about Algonquin College, some of them didn't. But you know, the ability of students today to learn online, and that's kind of a I've heard about the drawbacks of COVID, and that's clear. But you know, COVID probably brings in some cases some opportunities because I should say that from the onboarding and the online learning experience, I think that Algonquin College got a very, very good environment. So I wanted just to make this note that currently it seems that it's a pretty good time to try and bring in students from all over the world, not necessarily from India and China, as you mentioned. So it makes sense. I wanted to make this comment.
Thank you very much, and for your comment, and certainly we appreciate that. You know, we want to really diversify our student body as well. What I notice is the richness this provides in our classrooms really speaks to that. You know, what you don't want is having a class that's primarily made from all students coming from one particular part of the globe, because they look at each other and go, why did we come here? You know, they're hoping for a Canadian experience as well, and they're hoping for diversification as well. So we want to make sure that it works for us, it works for our international learners as well. And certainly any ideas that folks have about how to reach out to more people, create more awareness globally for Algonquin College, whether it's making sure we broadcast in multiple languages so that people have that awareness about us in their language, and then being able to translate this into a prospect and then an applicant and so on. So really we welcome all input to that pursuit. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another short thing. So, and you know, people are interested in maybe starting and getting on board remotely. Do courses start to learn and then understand? Because you know, not everyone can directly fly to Canada and start living here.
That's
But
right.
if you can start with something, you know, I think that you definitely have a very good platform, and the college itself, I think you could generate a lot of interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anand. All right, I will go to a written question. The question says, well, it's a similar question to the one Sean posed. The college has recently posted 4 full-time senior regional managers for Central Asia, Russia, Africa, and the Americas. Could you please explain these roles and what their mandate would be? So I believe we've answered that questions quite thoroughly. So I will skip answering that one again. However, if there was a nuance we missed, feel free to chime in either live or by adding to your question in the Q&A. I'll go to the last question that I have here, and it goes as follows from Nick Haddad. Could Algonquin College choose to reopen to students and staff, or is the college being closed by the Ontario government? No, the choice to open or not open ultimately falls to us, but it's not, you know, us in isolation. You know, I can't see a scenario in this current juncture where we would do so because of the pandemic. Let me give you a scenario that's not pandemic related, that where we would choose to close the college for a very good reason. A snowstorm. It's happened before, once I think. And you know, we don't often close the college, but you know, there may be situations, and we have a policy that describes how we would do so, and so we would, you know, weigh in all the factors, the safety of our learners, the safety of our employees, as to whether to remain open or not, and that could apply to all of Algonquin or specific campuses. So we would make those decisions based on evidence, the data we have. So it could be weather related, So snowstorm, maybe the tornado had hit a particular campus, as we had a couple of years ago, or it could be a power outage that forces us to close. So there may be, as I said, those non-pandemic reasons where we would close independent of anyone else in the Ottawa region, let alone in the rest of Ontario. Now, fast forward to a pandemic here that affects the entire globe, the entire country, the province, of course, the city. You take different measures and you take a different action because you're trying to act to the best benefit of a larger public, a larger audience in this case. It's not just the folks who work at the college, who attend the college as students, but there's the larger community we also have to be aware of as this virus continues to spread. So we're certainly, as I said at the start, working with Ottawa Public Health, Renfrew Public Health, and Lanark County Public Health to make sure that our actions that we take, the measures that we put in place, are in keeping with their recommendations. And we also stay in tune with what's happening at Ontario Public Health and in our ministry as well. So it's a combination of several agencies that we receive their input from, and then we continue to make decisions based on our current posture and our future posture based on these factors. Sorry, long-winded answer to say that we're not being shut down by government. But I can tell you, if we took an independent action that was really not in the best interest, I'd be shooting myself in the foot first of all, and somebody else would step in and say, no, Algonquin, what are you doing here? So again, we've got a lot of input to work with, and we weigh these things carefully before we make decisions, and that goes for whether we run events or not in the future, what to open, when to open it. Okay, I hope that answers the question. We are at our time. It is 2:50, and I promised that we would go to 3 o'clock only. We did have, whoops, it disappeared. I thought we had one more question, but it went away. And so what I would ask is, if you have a question that you were dying to ask and you didn't get a chance, either verbally or in writing, go ahead and write it in the Q&A right now. We'll capture those and we'll make sure we get you an answer, and we'll post those on my AC shortly after the town hall. All right, so at this point, I'll make a couple of remarks and then I'll turn it over to Ron for doing a closing of our gathering. So I want to thank you all for coming together. We've had, I know the numbers are dwindling right now, but we had almost 500 participants in our town hall today. Again, fantastic, engaged community that we have here at Algonquin College. You are obviously keenly interested in what's going on, what the future holds for the institution, for our employees, for yourselves, and it matters. It matters. I can see it in the tone of your questions. You've been professional, you've been courteous, yet you've been straightforward and candid with us, and that's what we appreciate. And in return, we try to give you the straight goods and tell you candidly as well what we can tell you. And I appreciate that from my executive team and all our panelists that we had today. So thank you for your participations and how you've answered the questions. And again, to our audience for joining us today and participating in our town hall. With that, I will turn it over to you, Ron.
Thank you, Claude. And thanks to the entire college community, really. I don't have the linguistic ability to do a closing in my language, but usually what we would do is, once again, to acknowledge each other, to acknowledge all those people and our ancestors that came before us as we prepare for those who come after us. And so with that, we thank everybody for having a good mind and continuing to do the work that you do in order to prepare our communities to have a better place and a better future for each other. So, Yamango, Yoyamari.